I'm sure everybody has had a lover or a family member or someone that they used to know, this friend perhaps, or an acquaintance that was kind of your favorite person at one point, even if they were an acquaintance. Because you can have those kinds of people in your life where they're just, even though the social interactions are surface level, there's something very beautiful about it. And I know that there's a lot of people on the spiritual path that they yearn for that deeper conversation because everything's so surface level. And I understand this, but at the same time, there's something really beautiful about being able to have surface level interactions with people. One of my favorite things to do right now is playing racquetball. I love playing racquetball. And there's a few guys that I play with in the mornings about 3 to 5 times a week. And we hardly say a word to each other. And it's honestly a very positive relationship because we go in there, we play racquetball pretty intensely, we're very competitive, and then we wish each other well and we call it a day. And it's very simple. And there's something really nice about that. But, I've noticed that this is the time of year when people start to really feel more isolated or lonely. And there's the spirit of this almost, I wouldn't say it's depression, but it's a spirit of consumption. Is there such a word as consumptionative? Consumptionative, depression and despair, I suppose, and grief. And we realize at this time of year, usually, just what kind of people are in our lives now. And we have the ability to reflect on where things have been going and how things have been going. And we think about, maybe the good old days or the good old times. And it really is something to reflect back on the superfluousness of some of these relationships that you feel as though in the moment of the past, when you were there, you felt like this was your favorite person. And now they're just a stranger. Now who knows what they're doing? Who knows what's going on, and who knows what's happening in their life? And it's very strange to be in this predicament because although I don't really, want that kind of relationship that I had with certain people in my life previously, although it was, terrible, for some reason, the human psyche has this way of remembering the good times more so after time has passed. In the moment, we kind of look for the doom and gloom, oftentimes as human beings, but then in retrospect, we often reflect on the good times. And I remember one time I was on psychedelics at this point, years and years ago, around this time period, and I remember it was me in this psychedelic experience. I was in silent darkness, and I won't say all of the details, but really what it came down to was it was me and God, and I didn't have a name for God at the time when I was doing this psychedelic because it was years and years ago, before I started to follow Christ. And it was just me and God looking back at my life at the end of the line. And it was a very profound experience because even to this day, you get this sense that life is always ever fleeting. Life is always going to be, it's in your grasp and yet it's not in your grasp at the same time. It's this paradox. And of course, the closer you are to paradox, the closer you are to truth. And the closer you are to paradox, the closer you are to the regal rhapsody of life, as I call it in my book here. Because with the regal rhapsody of life, what actually happens is that you start to become more grateful, and gratitude comes very easily to you. Because the more mature you are spiritually, the easier it's going to be for you to be grateful for anything, really. You can be grateful for the smallest of things. And I think that's really what it means to live out that regal rhapsody of life. Silence can be a regal rhapsody of life. And when I was meditating this morning before going to the gym, I was just very aware of the silence and the stillness. Because obviously it's Thanksgiving Day, the time I'm filming this, and although I only celebrate biblical holidays, I understand that there's going to be a lot of people that will celebrate this holiday. And, I think it's fine to have, it be a time for people to come together with family and such. I think that's all right, but, uh, I like to just do that in general. I would, if I had family that I would be able to visit, that I could, be on good terms with, of course, I would go to see them whenever I could and whenever I would want to, and I would talk to them as often as I could, because there really is something so grounding about family. To have a family is to be grounded to some degree. And although family does not always mean blood, family is not always blood. Family is who's choosing to be loyal to you and who you're choosing to be loyal to. And I think that that's a much more profound connection in the long term anyway, because you're actually graduating to a soul connection at that point, a soul family per se. And I use that term loosely, okay? I don't really these terms, people get caught up in concepts and such, and they think that I'm saying things that I'm really not. And I'm using these terms as a way to describe what is actually perceived, I suppose. And lately I've felt tremendous groundedness in my life. I've gotten to a place where things are just starting to feel like they're finally getting in the right direction again, because for the last 6 months or so, it's been a struggle, man. It has been a season of God refining me to the point in which I didn't know I even needed that refinement. And sometimes we see certain things in people that, people that we look up to or respect or things like that. And like these favorite people of ours, we look up to them in a way. Like, I'm sure everybody's heard or felt as though their mom or their dad or whoever it was that was raising them was almost like a superhero growing up, And then you grow up yourself and you realize that they're just as human as anybody else. And there's something weird that happens there. There's something weird that goes on there, because you start to see just how flawed people and your own senses of people truly are, can be sometimes anyway. And it's a humbling experience as well. And this is the time to really acknowledge what's going on, acknowledge why you're feeling what you're feeling, maybe why you even miss these people, because there are, although I can look back on the good times, I don't really miss these people. I don't miss some of these people that used to be my favorite people and now they're strangers. Okay, especially with women. I remember there was this one woman who I was practically in love with. Okay, and not even practically, I was in love with her. And now I don't have that kind of feeling anymore. I don't get that feeling with women hardly. I don't get the butterflies around women really anymore. I mean, it's just, I don't want to say that I've gotten to a point to where love doesn't exist, because of course love exists, and love is God, rather, to some degree, rather than God is love. I also think that the semantics there ought to be, again, taken loosely, but I don't really miss these people, and I don't miss the women that I used to be in love with, because now I just have love for women. I don't really fall in love. I don't think it's appropriate for men to fall in love with women. I think women and children can be in love, but men, we don't have that option. We don't have that luxury, because in order to really integrate ourselves properly, we have to be able to hold ourselves accountable and not think with, little willy waggle down there, or with our love brain. We can't think with those things. We've got to think with our soul and be with God at all times. We really don't get the luxury to rest. We don't get that luxury to relax in the way that, at least in relationships, the way that women and children can relax. And I think that that's okay, because that means that a man is integrating himself. It doesn't mean that he can't relax ever. Okay, it doesn't mean that he can't be calm, because being calm, cool, and collected and confident is very important, of course. But there's something that is frivolous to the soul, I think, when you are aiming to be something that you really ought not to be. You cheapen yourself. You cheapen who you are and why you are what you are. And that's a very dangerous thing, That's a very dangerous thing, and it's something that we all ought to be a bit cautious of as we pursue forth into the domain of life ahead, because as a man, I can't ever picture myself falling in love with a woman ever again. I don't see the point. I don't see being in love, quote unquote, has never gotten me anywhere but being taken advantage of or anything like that. But when I have love for women, when I show love, but I have my frame in myself, I come here to do this, but I'm not leaving without giving you affection, let's say. Like, I come to my house to be chill. Like, I'm picturing myself in the future, right? I come to my house to be chill and to have a place to live, but I'm not leaving my house without giving my woman some love. And I'm not going to be in love, but I'm going to be able to offer that. And I think that's something that men can really take into account for the long term. And we have to reframe this, because even when it comes to family and such, we got to be careful with family, because as the Bible says, that the enemies will be on our own household. And I can't tell you how true that was for me, because I didn't even realize the depth of the maliciousness. And I'm not trying to speak ill on anybody, but it was very malicious at certain points. I mean, the lying, the deceiving, the conniving, the smear campaigns, I could go on and on. They're expecting me to just take it. I'm supposed to take these spiritual lashes because, well, they're my family. It's like, that's not really a justifiable answer to me anymore. And it's kind of like with women nowadays. I don't think that I should be praising women and worshiping women. And for some reason, that makes me a misogynist. When I just tell women how it is, that makes me a misogynist. And a lot of men agree with me, though. Like the men that watch this account, and they are understanding. A lot of women even agree with me that are actually godly. I haven't met one godly, sweet woman that disagrees with me. All the women that disagree with me are usually, for some reason, they've got those big old glasses, they've got the green hair, all that crazy stuff, or they're closet feminists pretending to be trad con wives. That's the thing. But overall, I think that we're at a state in our society where we have the most opportune moment to really choose exactly who we want to be and why we want to be that person. And we get to choose who we're around to another degree in which we've never been able to before, but it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility. And I don't know, it's like the older I get, and I'm only 29, but the older I get, the more I find myself, I just really don't need anybody. I really don't need anybody. I want people, but I don't need anybody. And I've often pondered if this is a negative side effect in the long run, because of course we need people. Like, everybody needs everybody to some degree, right? But what I'm saying is that I really don't need to need people. And that's a weird feeling. You know, it's a weird thing to not really need people, because I go around and I can see and I can notice without people noticing that I'm noticing that I'm just very chill and I don't really have too many things that bother me other than just promiscuous women trying to get with me. That's really the biggest hurdle in my life right now. Like this is how blessed I am. My biggest problem in life is the promiscuous women that want me. Like that's really the biggest problem that I have right now. Business is all right. You know, business is going well. We're moving up. Of course, everything could be better, but you know, there's a lot of things that are going positive, and we're on an upward trajectory. You know, that's the most important thing. There's progress being made, but really, right now, at least for the last few days, my biggest problem has been these Jezebels, man. And you want to communicate with these women because they fit your attractive level, and they fit the attraction check box, right? But when it comes to their spiritual side, I mean, they're just empty, dude. They are empty, and it's ridiculous because it's like, how are we supposed to move forward? You know, how are we supposed to live together when people are just so empty and they just see that they want to be healed by you, or that they like you see that they just want to be healed by you, or that you have something that you could give them, or they just want your energy because it feels good for someone like you who doesn't really pay much attention to people to look at them. You know, it's just it's just a weird situation and a weird time, because in many ways life is better than ever, but then in other ways it's like the lonely hand that offers a helping hand, right? It's like that lonely hand that offers a helping hand who ends up giving more than he needs to, because, and I'm not saying I'm lonely by any stretch, like sometimes it can get kind of lonesome, but I'm just alone at this point, and I'm okay with that. I have people in my life. I have a social circle. I am social. Obviously, we have the Regal Change Academy, and I'm very grateful for that godly community, because we have so many different people that have different perspectives to offer now. And we're getting more and more elite people by the day, almost, it seems like. And it's so great because we're now seeing more elite people offer these more elite perspectives of life. And you're thinking to yourself, like, this is social communication, man. This is social communication. This isn't this isn't whatever anybody else is doing. I'm convinced sports are more addictive than cocaine for some of these dudes out here. I don't know how people are so involved with sports nowadays. You know, it's just like there's a storm coming, man. There's a storm coming. You guys know this. There's always a storm coming, and winter's always coming, right? If anybody's watched Game of Thrones, you guys know what I'm referencing. But winter's coming, and nobody seems to be prepared except for like godly people. And all we can do is keep preaching about it. All we can do is keep preaching and hoping that these people are going to do what they need to do, because we love these people because God commands us to. But man, I don't respect many people in the world anymore. I really don't. And it doesn't mean that I don't think some people have. It doesn't mean that I don't think people have good things to say sometimes, but I just don't trust people, man. I just don't. I really don't trust anybody. It's very difficult for me to trust people, not because I don't think that their intentions are bad. It's because I wonder, and I'm hoping for dear life that they don't do something stupid because of their own insecurities, because that's what's happened in the past. With my favorite people in the past, they didn't really have malicious intent, but they always did something stupid because they were insecure. And it makes you like, ah! Like, why did you do that, dude? Why did you do that? We had something, at least so I thought. And now it turns out to be an illusion. And that's a bummer, dude. It's a bummer. But, we persevere, we carry on, and we stay inspired by the Lord Jesus Christ above all else. So, with all that being said, I hope everybody has a blessed day. Peace. Until next time.